People think lighthouses are romantic. They imagine crashing waves, beautiful sunsets, and quiet nights overlooking the ocean. They're wrong. A lighthouse is one of the loneliest places on Earth. Especially when it's the only structure on a remote island hundreds of miles from the mainland. My name is Daniel Harper. For 3 years, I worked as the caretaker of Blackstone Lighthouse. The island wasn't on most tourist maps. It sat alone in the North Atlantic, surrounded by jagged cliffs and violent seas. The nearest town was nearly 60 miles away by boat. During winter storms, the distance might as well have been 600. Most people couldn't handle the isolation. The silence. The endless ocean stretching in every direction. I thought I could. At first, I loved it. The lighthouse stood nearly 200 feet above the waves. Every morning I climbed the spiral stairs to inspect the lantern room. Every evening I activated the light. Simple routine. Simple life. Just me. The sea. And the island. Then I found the logbook. Every lighthouse keeps records. Weather conditions. Ship traffic. Maintenance reports. Normal things. This wasn't a normal logbook. I discovered it hidden behind an old panel beneath the lantern room. The cover looked ancient. Salt-stained. Weathered. The first page contained only one sentence. If the light turns toward the sea, do not watch what it finds. I laughed. At least initially. The warning sounded ridiculous. The lighthouse light couldn't turn toward the sea. It already faced the sea. That was literally its purpose. I forgot about the notebook. For a while. Then came November. Storm season. The first major storm arrived on a Thursday night. Wind screamed against the tower. Waves smashed into the cliffs below. The entire structure trembled. Around midnight, I climbed into the lantern room for a routine inspection. The light rotated normally. Everything appeared fine. Then I noticed something strange. The beam paused. Only briefly. Less than a second. But long enough for me to notice. The mechanism continued rotating afterward. I assumed it was mechanical. Nothing more. Then it happened again. The beam stopped. This time facing northeast. Toward open ocean. Toward nothing. My stomach tightened. I checked the machinery. Everything looked normal. No damage. No malfunction. Nothing. Then the beam moved again. Continuing its rotation. I spent another hour inspecting components before returning downstairs. By 2 a.m. the storm intensified. Rain hammered the windows. The island disappeared beneath darkness. The ocean beyond the cliffs became invisible. Then the radio activated. Static exploded from the speaker. I nearly jumped. No vessels were scheduled nearby. Nobody should have been transmitting. The static continued for several seconds. Then a voice emerged. Weak. Distorted. Almost drowned by interference. Can you see us? My pulse quickened. I grabbed the microphone. This is Blackstone Lighthouse. Identify yourself. Silence. Then the voice returned. Please. A pause. Turn the light back. Cold crawled down my spine. What vessel are you on? No answer. Only static. Then the transmission ended. I checked radar immediately. Nothing. No ships. No boats. No distress signals. The ocean around the island remained empty. Yet something about the call felt wrong. The voice sounded terrified. Genuinely terrified. I spent the rest of the night awake. Watching the storm. Listening to the radio. Nothing else happened. By sunrise I convinced myself it had been interference. Atmospheric conditions. Electrical noise. A reasonable explanation. Then I climbed to the lantern room. And found footprints. Wet footprints. My blood froze. They crossed the floor in a straight line. From one side of the room to the other. Human footprints. Bare feet. Water still dripped from them. My pulse hammered. Nobody else lived on the island. Nobody. The footprints ended beside the glass. Facing the ocean. Facing northeast. The same direction where the light had paused. Then I noticed something scratched into the condensation on the window. 3 words. Written from the inside. They saw US. I stared at the message, trying to process what I was seeing. Then a wave crashed against the cliffs below. The impact shook the lighthouse. The condensation vanished. The writing disappeared. As though it had never existed. I wish that had been the end of it. It wasn't. That night the light stopped again. And this time, it stayed pointed at the sea. The lighthouse beam stopped moving. My pulse immediately accelerated. For several seconds I simply stood in the lantern room staring at it. Waiting. Expecting the mechanism to restart. It didn't. The massive light remained fixed toward the northeastern sea. Toward open water. Toward nothing. Or at least that's what I thought. Outside, another storm battered Blackstone Island. Rain lashed the glass. Wind screamed around the tower. The ocean below churned like black oil. Yet despite the chaos, the lighthouse beam remained perfectly still. My stomach tightened. I grabbed my radio and called the mainland maintenance office. No answer. Not unusual during storms. Still, the silence bothered me. The beam wasn't supposed to stop. Ever. Then I remembered the notebook. The warning hidden beneath the lantern room. If the light turns toward the sea, do not watch what it finds. For the first time, I wasn't laughing. I checked the mechanism again. Nothing. No broken gears. No damaged motors. Everything appeared normal. The system should have been rotating. Yet it wasn't. Then something moved beyond the glass. Far out on the ocean. My breath caught. At first I thought it was a wave. Then another flash of lightning illuminated the sea. And I saw it. A ship. My pulse jumped. The vessel sat directly inside the lighthouse beam. Perfectly centered. Perfectly still. Impossible. I rushed toward the observation binoculars. The storm should have hidden any vessel. Visibility barely extended a few hundred yards. Yet somehow I could see the ship clearly. Far beyond the horizon. Far beyond where it should have been visible. The vessel looked ancient. Massive. Black. Its hull appeared centuries old. No navigation lights. No markings. No radio signals. Nothing. It simply sat there. Watching. Then lightning flashed again. And my stomach dropped. The ship wasn't floating. It stood above the water. Not by much. Just enough. A few feet above the waves. As if the ocean refused to touch it. I stepped back from the binoculars. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. Very wrong. Then the radio crackled. Static erupted from the speaker. The same voice returned. The terrified voice from the previous night. We found the island. Cold spread through my chest. I grabbed the microphone. Who is this? A pause. Then. You shouldn't be there. The transmission crackled violently. Like multiple voices were speaking at once. Then the voice returned. Much closer. Much clearer. And somehow, much more frightened. Did the light stop? My pulse hammered. I didn't answer. The silence apparently told them everything. The voice broke. Oh God. Static swallowed the transmission. Then another voice emerged. Different. Calmer. Older. Leave the tower. The radio died immediately afterward. The room fell silent. Outside, the ship remained motionless within the beam. Watching. Waiting. My hands trembled slightly. Then I noticed something beside the lantern room door. A small brass plaque. I'd passed it hundreds of times. Never paid attention. Now I did. Names. Dozens of them. Previous lighthouse keepers. Every caretaker since Blackstone Lighthouse opened. My stomach tightened. The first few names had dates beside them. Normal retirement dates. Transfer dates. Routine endings. Then something changed. The later entries contained no end dates. Only beginnings. One name especially stood out. Arthur Wells. No ending. No departure. Nothing. Just the year he arrived. I frowned. Then remembered something. Arthur Wells wasn't a stranger. I'd seen his name before. In the hidden notebook. I rushed downstairs. The storm intensified outside. Thunder shook the tower. Rain hammered the windows. I returned to the old logbook and began reading properly. For hours I'd ignored most entries. Now I didn't. The first pages seemed ordinary. Maintenance notes. Weather reports. Supply records. Then the tone changed. Arthur Wells. December 3rd, 1989. The light stopped tonight. December 4th. There is a ship beyond the horizon. December 5th. I think it can see the island. My pulse quickened. The entries continued. Each one more disturbing than the last. December 7th. The radio voices know my name. December 8th. I found footprints in the lantern room. December 9th. They came ashore. My blood froze. I flipped ahead. The handwriting became increasingly frantic. Messier. Desperate. Then I reached the final entry. The last thing Arthur Wells ever wrote. The words were barely legible. The ship isn't looking for the lighthouse. A pause. Then one final sentence. The lighthouse is looking for the ship. My stomach dropped. A violent crash echoed outside. I nearly jumped. Something had struck the cliffs. Hard. The impact shook the entire island. Then another crash followed. Closer. Much closer. I grabbed a flashlight and ran outside. The wind nearly knocked me over. Rain reduced visibility to almost nothing. The ocean below churned violently. Then lightning illuminated the shoreline. And I saw figures standing on the rocks. My pulse stopped. People. At least they looked like people. Dozens of them. Standing motionless along the cliffs. Facing the lighthouse. Their clothes appeared soaked. Ancient. Torn. Some looked decades old. Others looked centuries old. None moved. None blinked. They simply stared upward. Watching the tower. Watching me. Then another flash of lightning revealed their faces. My stomach twisted. Every single one had seawater pouring from their mouths. As if they had drowned. As if they were still drowning. Then one of them raised a hand. And pointed toward the ocean. Toward the impossible ship. The storm suddenly fell silent. Not weakened. Silent. The wind stopped. The waves stopped. Even the rain seemed frozen. The entire world held its breath. Then a deep horn echoed across the sea. The sound came from the ship. Ancient. Mournful. Wrong. My pulse hammered. The figures along the shoreline all smiled simultaneously. And far beyond the horizon, the ship began moving toward the island. The ship was moving. That realization hit me harder than anything I'd seen so far. Not because ships moving is unusual. Because this one shouldn't have been able to. The vessel sat far beyond the horizon only moments ago. Yet every time lightning flashed, it appeared closer. Much closer. Covering impossible distances. As if it wasn't traveling through water at all. As if it was moving through something else. I stood frozen on the cliffs while the drowned figures continued staring upward. Every single one smiling. Every single one pointing toward the sea. Then another blast from the ship's horn echoed across the ocean. The sound vibrated through my chest. Through the island. Through the lighthouse itself. The tower shuddered. A low metallic groan echoed from somewhere below. My stomach tightened. That sound hadn't come from the storm. It had come from inside the lighthouse. I immediately ran back toward the tower. The drowned figures didn't follow. They simply watched me leave. Still smiling. Still waiting. Inside, the lighthouse felt different. The air seemed colder. Heavier. Like the building itself was holding its breath. The groaning sound came again. From beneath the spiral staircase. My pulse accelerated. I'd lived here for 3 years. There wasn't supposed to be anything beneath the staircase. The lighthouse foundation sat directly on bedrock. Or at least that's what I'd always believed. I grabbed a flashlight and descended. The beam cut through darkness. The staircase spiraled downward toward the main floor. Halfway down, I noticed something strange. A section of wall stood slightly open. A narrow gap. Barely visible. I'd never seen it before. My heart pounded. The gap revealed a hidden iron door. Ancient. Rust-covered. Almost completely concealed behind stone. My flashlight shook slightly as I approached. A heavy padlock hung from the handle. The metal looked decades old. Then I noticed something scratched into the door. Names. Hundreds of names. Every lighthouse keeper listed on the brass plaque upstairs. Arthur Wells. Michael Crane. Samuel Porter. Dozens more. My pulse hammered. Why would their names be carved here? Then I saw a final message beneath them. Written in a different hand. Much newer. Don't open this during a signal night. A signal night. The lighthouse beam. The ship. The realization hit immediately. Tonight. This was a signal night. I should have walked away. Locked the door. Pretended I never found it. Instead, I grabbed a wrench from the maintenance cabinet. 20 minutes later, the old padlock snapped apart. The iron door creaked open. Cold air spilled out. Air that smelled like seawater. My stomach twisted. There shouldn't have been seawater inside the lighthouse. Not this far above the ocean. Then I shined my flashlight inside. And found a staircase. Descending into darkness. Far below the lighthouse foundation. Far below sea level. Impossible. Yet there it was. I followed it. The deeper I went, the colder the air became. The smell of saltwater intensified. Soon I began hearing something else. Voices. Whispers. Hundreds of them. Too faint to understand. The staircase ended inside a massive underground chamber. My flashlight revealed shelves. Desks. Boxes. Thousands of documents. Journals. Photographs. Records. An entire archive hidden beneath the island. My pulse raced. The room belonged to the keepers. Every missing keeper. Every caretaker who had supposedly vanished. They hadn't disappeared. They'd left records. Warnings. Evidence. I opened the nearest journal. Arthur Wells. The entries continued far beyond the notebook upstairs. For years. Years after his supposed disappearance. My blood froze. Arthur hadn't vanished. He'd stayed. The journal explained everything. Or at least enough. The ship appeared every few decades. Always during severe storms. Always when the lighthouse beam locked onto a specific point in the ocean. The keepers called it the returning vessel. Nobody knew where it came from. Nobody knew what was aboard. But every account described the same thing. When the ship reached shore, someone came off it. Not passengers. Not sailors. Copies. Perfect imitations of people who had once lived on the island. People who were dead. My stomach tightened. I grabbed another journal. Then another. The stories matched. Different decades. Different keepers. Same events. Same ship. Same arrivals. Then I found a photograph. The image nearly made me drop the flashlight. A group of lighthouse keepers stood outside Blackstone Lighthouse. Normal enough. Until I recognized one of them. Myself. My pulse exploded. The photograph was dated 1957. Nearly 70 years ago. Yet the man standing among the keepers looked exactly like me. Same face. Same eyes. Same everything. I stared at the image. Unable to breathe. Unable to think. Then a voice spoke behind me. That was the first time. I spun around. The flashlight beam swept across the chamber. And landed on a man sitting in the darkness. My heart nearly stopped. Arthur Wells. The missing keeper. Exactly as he appeared in the old photographs. Not aged. Not dead. Just sitting there. Watching me. My pulse hammered. The flashlight trembled violently. Arthur sighed. You opened the door. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The man stood slowly. Then stepped into the light. His clothes looked decades old. His face carried the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept in years. Yet he remained perfectly alive. Perfectly human. Mostly. Then I noticed seawater dripping from his sleeves. Dripping from his hair. Dripping from his skin. My stomach twisted. Arthur followed my gaze. Then smiled sadly. They all leak eventually. A chill crawled down my spine. Then the lighthouse horn sounded again. Louder. Much closer. Arthur's face immediately darkened. It's here. My pulse accelerated. The ship. The returning vessel. Arthur looked toward the ceiling. Toward the ocean above us. Then quietly said the words I'd been dreading. You need to see what comes ashore. Another horn blast shook the island. This time the entire underground chamber trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The shells rattled. The journals shook. Then something else happened. Footsteps. Heavy footsteps. Above us. Inside the lighthouse. My blood froze. Arthur closed his eyes. They're early. The footsteps multiplied. One pair. Then several. Then dozens. Slowly descending the spiral staircase. Coming down. Toward us. Toward the hidden chamber. And for the first time, I realized the ship wasn't bringing passengers. It was bringing lighthouse keepers. The footsteps continued descending. Slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Each one echoed through the hidden chamber beneath the lighthouse. My pulse hammered so hard it hurt. Arthur Wells stood perfectly still beside me. Listening. Waiting. Like he already knew who was coming. Or what? The sound grew louder. Closer. The spiral staircase above the chamber seemed to groan under the weight of dozens of people. Then the voices started. Soft at first. Whispers. Murmurs. Conversations. The kind of background noise you'd hear from people arriving at a train station. Except there shouldn't have been anyone on the island. Not during a storm. Not in the middle of the night. Certainly not beneath a lighthouse. The whispers became clearer. And my stomach dropped. They were all speaking with the same voice. My voice. Dozens of versions of it. Dozens of conversations. Dozens of Daniels talking at once. The realization nearly made me sick. Arthur looked exhausted. You hear it now. I couldn't look away from the staircase. The whispers continued. Some sounded young. Some old. Some terrified. Some calm. Yet all belonged to me. Then the first figure appeared. A man stepped into the chamber. My breath caught immediately. Because it was me. Not similar. Not close. Exactly me. Same face. Same eyes. Same height. Same everything. The only difference was the clothing. This version wore a lighthouse uniform from decades ago. Seawater dripped from his coat. His skin looked pale. Almost translucent. Behind him came another. And another. And another. My pulse exploded. Dozens of Daniels emerged from the staircase. Versions from different eras. Different decades. Different lives. All carrying traces of the sea. Some looked ancient. Some looked injured. One appeared elderly. Another looked younger than me. Every single one stared silently. Watching. Waiting. Then they stepped aside. Making room. My stomach twisted. Because something else was coming down. Something larger. The footsteps became heavier. The air grew colder. The chamber lights flickered. Then he appeared. At first I thought it was a lighthouse keeper. Then I realized it was wearing pieces of dozens of uniforms. Different decades. Different eras. Different people. Its body looked human. Mostly. But not completely. The proportions were wrong. The limbs slightly too long. The smile slightly too wide. Its face shifted constantly. Changing every few seconds. One moment Arthur Wells. Then another keeper. Then me. Then someone else. Hundreds of faces moving beneath the skin like reflections in water. My pulse hammered. The thing smiled. Keeper. Its voice sounded like hundreds speaking together. Every missing lighthouse keeper. Every drowned sailor. Every lost voice. All speaking simultaneously. Arthur stepped in front of me. For the first time, genuine fear appeared on his face. The thing noticed. And laughed. The sound reminded me of waves breaking against cliffs. Endless. Cold. Ancient. Then it looked directly at me. The shifting faces stopped. Leaving only mine. My exact face. My exact smile. You finally understand. I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. The creature slowly approached. Water pooled around its feet. Seawater streamed from its sleeves. Yet somehow the floor remained dry. Reality itself seemed to reject the moisture. Then Arthur finally spoke. What do you want? The creature looked surprised. As though the question amused it. Then it answered. Nothing. A pause. Then. I came to collect. The chamber fell silent. Arthur's expression darkened. You already have enough. The thing smiled wider. No. Its eye shifted toward me. I don't. My stomach dropped. The realization hit instantly. The ship. The lighthouse. The copies. Everything connected. Every keeper eventually joined the crew. Not physically. As a memory. A version. A reflection. The thing wasn't hunting people. It was preserving them. Keeping them. Collecting them. Just like the entity beneath Yellowstone. Just like the imitators. Something old. Something impossible. Something terrified of being forgotten. Then the creature raised one hand. The air immediately distorted. Images appeared around the chamber. Memories. Thousands of them. Every lighthouse keeper. Every storm. Every shipwreck. Every lonely night. Stored. Preserved. Never allowed to fade. The sight was overwhelming. Then I noticed something horrifying. None of the keepers looked happy. Not one. The memories trapped them. Preserved them. Prevented them from ending. Arthur stepped forward. His voice shook. Let them go. The creature looked almost confused. Why? Arthur stared at it. Because we're supposed to die. Silence followed. The thing genuinely seemed unable to understand. Then the lighthouse horn sounded again. The loudest blast yet. The island shook violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The creature looked upward. Toward the ocean. Toward the ship. Its expression changed. For the first time. It seemed worried. Arthur noticed. So did I. The thing wasn't in control. Not entirely. Something else existed. Something aboard the ship. Something even older. Then the chamber trembled again. The walls cracked. The sea roared above us. And a voice echoed through the entire lighthouse. A voice so deep it felt older than the ocean itself. One sentence. Only one. The light has found another. Every version of me immediately turned toward the ceiling. Every keeper. Every copy. Every memory. Their expression shifted from calm to fear. Real fear. Arthur grabbed my arm. Hard. We have to get to the lantern room. My pulse accelerated. Why? Arthur looked terrified. The creature looked terrified. Even the copies looked terrified. Then Arthur answered. The ship isn't the problem. A pause. Then the words that changed everything. The light is. The lighthouse shook again. And somewhere above us, something enormous looked back from the sea. The lighthouse shook so violently that cracks spread across the chamber walls. Dust poured from the ceiling. The shelves collapsed. Journals scattered across the floor. Above us, the horn sounded again. Not from the ship. From something far larger. Far older. Arthur grabbed my arm and practically dragged me toward the staircase. Move! The copies followed. Dozens of lighthouse keepers. Decades of memories. All rushing upward. All terrified. That terrified me more than anything else. Because until now, they'd seemed beyond fear. We climbed the spiral staircase 2 steps at a time. The entire lighthouse trembled around us. The stone walls groaned. Metal screamed somewhere overhead. And beneath it all, I could hear the ocean. Not waves. Breathing. Something in the sea was breathing. By the time we reached the lantern room, the storm had vanished. Completely. No wind. No rain. No thunder. Only silence. The ocean stretched endlessly beneath a moonless sky. And the lighthouse beam remained fixed on the same point in the distance. The same place where the ship had appeared. The same place where the light had stopped. Arthur froze beside the glass. His face drained of color. For a moment, he looked like a man seeing a nightmare return. Then I followed his gaze. And saw it. My mind struggled to understand what I was looking at. At first it seemed like part of the ocean. A darker section of water. Then it moved. My pulse stopped. An eye. An enormous eye. Miles wide. Opening beneath the surface of the sea. The ocean itself curved around it. The ship looked microscopic beside it. The island looked microscopic beside it. The eye stared directly at the lighthouse. Directly at the beam. Directly at me. Every instinct in my body screamed. Not fear. Recognition. Like something ancient had finally found what it was searching for. The lighthouse beam brightened. The entire tower vibrated. Arthur whispered something. A prayer. Or maybe a curse? Then he looked at me. The lighthouse isn't warning ships. My stomach tightened. What? The old keeper pointed toward the sea. The lighthouse is a signal. The realization hit instantly. The notebook. The ship. The keepers. The warnings. Everything. The lighthouse wasn't protecting people from the ocean. It was helping something in the ocean find people. For centuries. The beam swept across the water every night. Searching. Calling. Guiding. My pulse hammered. The eye beneath the sea widened. And suddenly memories flooded my head. Not mine. The lighthouses. Hundreds of years. Thousands of nights. Countless storms. Keepers maintaining the signal. Generation after generation. Without knowing what they served. The lighthouse had only one purpose. To watch. To search. To find. And eventually. To be found. The eye continued rising. The ocean around Blackstone Island began pulling away. Water retreated from the cliffs, exposing the seafloor. Fish flopped helplessly across wet rock. The island shook. Arthur stared at the beam. Then at me. There's only one way to stop it. I already knew. The lighthouse. The signal. The beam. Destroy the light. The moment the thought entered my head, every copy in the room reacted. All of them. Every keeper. Every memory. They turned toward me. Their faces filled with panic. Because they understood what would happen. If the signal died, they would disappear too. The creature from below stepped into the lantern room. Water dripped from its shifting face. It looked at me. Then spoke softly. You'll erase us. I stared back. You were never supposed to stay. The thing looked genuinely sad. For the first time. Not angry. Not monstrous. Sad. Then it smiled. A tired smile. And stepped aside. Giving me a clear path to the lantern mechanism. Arthur nodded. The choice was mine. Outside, the gigantic eye rose higher. The ocean trembled. The island groaned. The lighthouse beam brightened again. Almost blinding. The signal had never been stronger. The thing beneath the sea had finally found its destination. I ran toward the mechanism. The ancient gears roared. Metal screamed. The machinery fought me. As if the lighthouse itself wanted to live. Wanted to continue searching. Then I found the main drive shaft. The heart of the entire system. I grabbed an emergency axe from the wall. And swung. Once. Twice. 3 times. The metal cracked. The tower shook violently. The beam flickered. Outside, the enormous eye narrowed. The ocean churned. Something ancient realized what I was doing. I swung again. The drive shaft snapped. The lantern exploded into darkness. The beam vanished. Instantly. Silence. Absolute silence. The eye froze. The sea stopped moving. The ship stopped moving. The copies stopped moving. Everything stopped. Then the eye slowly began sinking. Back beneath the ocean. Back into darkness. Back into whatever abyss had hidden it for centuries. The ship followed. Descending beneath the waves. Vanishing without a trace. The creature beside me smiled one final time. Then dissolved into seawater. Arthur looked relieved. Truly relieved. For the first time since I'd met him. Then he faded too. Like mist beneath sunlight. The other keepers followed. Hundreds of lost souls. Hundreds of trapped memories. Finally disappearing. Finally free. Within minutes, I stood alone in the lantern room. The lighthouse was dark. The ocean was calm. The island was silent. And everything felt normal. That happened 4 years ago. Blackstone Lighthouse was decommissioned shortly afterward. Officially, structural damage made it unsafe. Unofficially, nobody wanted the light turned on again. The island remains abandoned. No keepers. No visitors. No signal. Most people think the lighthouse is empty. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Because every now and then, during severe storms, ships report seeing a light far out at sea. A lighthouse beam sweeping across the darkness. Searching. Looking for something. And whenever those reports appear, I remember the final thing Arthur told me before he disappeared. The ocean doesn't forget. Sometimes late at night, I think about that. And I wonder whether we actually destroyed the signal. Or whether we only turned it off long enough for something beneath the sea to start searching for us instead.